Hey there, crazy sampler quilters. Are you ready for quilt block number 2? I've been waiting and waiting for you. Good, I'm glad you're ready. Remember we started last time with our Patience Corner? That's what this design is, and of course I did mine. This was a million years ago. Here's my new color combination. We'll just fly that kind of in front. A little bit more neutral this time, going with some fewer fabrics, I guess you could say. And if you just move straight down, this is the new pattern that we're going to be working on today. It's called the Ohio Star. You can see it's made up of squares and also a group of 4 triangles that make up an equal size square so that we can put these all together. So come on over to the table and I'll show you how I'm working on this. Always bring your old squares, your finished squares I guess I should say, over to your new ones so that you can play around with the colors, make sure everything works well. And take a look down here. I have my pattern pieces I wanted to show you. The square is, let me look at my cheat sheet here, 4.5 inches square. This includes your 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. And the triangles that you're going to be making are 4 inches, 4 inches, 5.5 inches. Okay? Now take a look at the layout that I have going here. Patience Corner here, Ohio Star. Now you can see how this goes together. Here are our squares in the corners and also in the center. And then we use 4 triangles to make up squares as well. Usually go dark in the center and kind of come out a little brighter. I like the idea of using my cream or off-white as my real star shape. But as you can see, this doesn't match here. I have other colors that I'm working with in the quilt, this red and this softer kind of pinky red. And I was just trying to compare. How do I like the way, you know, you take a piece of paper or something and cover this area up and see what you think about how it looks with this? Well, as you can see, I have less of it showing here because I have determined that I really much prefer all my neutrals in here. Put them in for you. Okay. And isn't that going to be a pretty quilt block? The first thing that we do to get this started then is we piece the little pieces together. Now you take your square of triangles and split it. Take this one and fold it over onto here. This one and fold it over on here. Now give me a minute or two. I'm going to pin and then we'll go over and stitch them and then we'll put the two together. Alrighty, we have the two of them pinned together. Remember how that was laying there. Now let's do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now fortunately for me, on my presser foot, I have this little indent, and that indent means from the needle to that is a 1/4 inch, so I'm lucky. Now you may have to tape yours or whatever you need to mark it, but this works out very nicely. So we'll go right along the seam there. Clip that one off. Let's get the next one ready. Line it up. Let's not lose that thread. It's so hard to put it back in the needle, huh? Okay. Now we're going to remove the pins. Let's get this other one over here. Take the pins out, trim the threads a little bit. And I like to open this up and press with my hands, called really hand pressing, the seam over to the dark side. So this is my gold fabric and I'm just kind of pressing this down over to the gold side. And I'll do the same on this one. You know, I have the brown and the cream, and we'll have to cut those threads off of there. Pull it a little bit and press it down. That way I'm not running to the ironing board every 5 seconds. And what we want to do now is attach these two together. So we'll lay one out. Now my seam allowance is on the dark side, and on this one it's on also the dark side. but you see they're going to be opposite sides when I lay them here together, and that's going to be nice. The most difficult part about putting these two together is once I stitch this, I really want this to meet perfectly. So I'm going to pin it, and then I'm going to put a pin in the center. I'll show you right here. Get a couple pins out. Pin it. Get as close as I can, just sort of by eyeballing it. Get one more in here at the end. And then if you take a pin, might have to pull that out a little bit. Let's just use that one. And put a pin right in the seam here. Open up the block and see how nicely they're coming together. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to move around. Do you see that? Oh shoot, I moved it. Pin is right there in the seam. That should allow these to line up perfectly when we stitch them together. So we'll put that pin in right there. All right, let's remove the pins and see how we did. Oh my goodness. Is it possible it's perfect? I guess that's the goal, isn't it? Now let's take it over to the ironing board and we'll iron this stuff down well so that we know it stays like that. Okay, time to iron. Now you know we're always trying to iron in somewhat of a pinwheel direction. In other words, you lay one down, lay the next one down, all in kind of the same direction. So take a look at this. Remember, this was our first seam going off into the dark, this seam going off into the dark, the beautiful perfect seam that we just did. I'll show you again. So excited. This is the first good one I've done, so I'm so impressed. Now because this wants to lay this way, you know, this seam should go that direction, but it's the same seam, and it really feels like it wants to go this way, so that's the way I'm going to make that go. Just iron it down tight. You might need to kind of pull on it a little bit so your seams are all the way open. All right, there we go. It looks like a pinwheel, doesn't it? Okay, so here's how this whole thing lays out. Remember, this is our top row. You're actually looking at it upside down. The rest of the stars down here. But we have our other corner block on the other side, and so of course the next project is to, I guess we could start here, flip one over, stitch the sides together, open that up, and put this whole thing over the top here, stitch this together, and we will end up with this. See what I mean? This one isn't quite as perfect, but I think I'm going to stick with it. Now come on back over to the table with me and we'll take a look at the next row. All right, there's the first strip. Now as you can see, we just have to create 3 more of these, you know, so it's fold the triangle over, pin it, stitch it, fold it, pin it, stitch it, fold it. Fold it, pin it, stitch it. I'll do that for the rest of these, and then I will put these 3 blocks together, and then I will put the bottom 3 blocks together, and then I'm going to give you an idea, an opportunity that is, to see the 3 strips together. So let's get the pins going here and make something happen. Well, I'm pretty proud of my 3 strips. I think they look pretty nice, but I have a couple things to talk to you about. First of all, I had to ditch one of my squares because, as you can see in the center here, it did not come together very well. So, you know, instead of putting kind of a crummy one into my block, I want my block to be as perfect as possible. I just cut out 4 more triangles, redid it, and, you know, this will go somewhere else. The other thing I want to make sure to mention is on the bottom and top strip, I pressed the seam allowances to the outside. You can see that here. And in the center, then I press them to the inside so that when we do sew these together, we aren't going to get real bulky here. One goes one way, one goes the other way, so that'll be very nice. The last thing to mention, this could happen to you, it's happened to me. Be very mindful of your pattern and what colors need to be sewn next to each other. When you pick the middle square up and you take one of these over to the sewing machine with you, it's very easy to just sit and start pinning it together, and you pin the center one to the yellow triangle, or you pin it to the white triangle, and next thing you know you have your pattern all mixed up. So just be careful there. Now what I'm going to do is take my top one, I'm going to flip it over here. I'm going to do the same kind of thing, really lining up my seams as best I can. Once that's stitched, I'll attach this to the bottom piece and we'll have our finished square. So let me get that started and we'll do a voila at the end. Quilt block number 2, the Ohio Star. Doesn't it look great? Now, let me tell you a couple things about this one. Have you seen one of these before? This is called a seam ripper. And oftentimes, it's necessary to have a seam ripper when you're creating quilt blocks. Now, there were a couple of places here, I can't remember now if it was up along the top here, where I felt like these didn't meet. And you can see they're still not perfect, but I did get them much better than they were. So I used the seam ripper and then, restitched a couple of the areas. But basically, I think it looks pretty good. The dark in the center is very nice. It kind of draws your eye in. And when you put the two blocks together, they're going to be very pretty within the same quilt. You can tell that they go together. Oh, let me also mention that those seams that I sewed, I pressed to the outside. It's always a good idea once you get your stitching done to go over and really press it down nicely. So let's go over to the quilt on the wall, and I'm going to show you the next block we're going to do. Block number 3 in a couple of months, so give yourself some time to get that thing perfect, is going to be this particular design right here. This is called Card Trick. So you can start playing around with your fabrics, look for 4 different ones that you like to kind of intermingle here. And we'll put that one together. Looks like a lot of triangles going on, so we're going to get really good at stitching those triangles. Have fun. Send me some photos of your Ohio Stars if you want. I'd love to see them. Just go to the message board. You can send some things in, and we'll continue on until we have our 6-panel sampler quilt. Have a good time.